Hi everyone, this is Nafish. Today we are going to go over some of the data structures in R. So, we have vectors, list, matrices, arrays, data frames, and factors. Okay, and if you just do a Google search, you can see the differences among all these data structures. However, I'm going to go over with examples and I'm trying to show you the key differences. Okay, and also go over how can we extract or add elements into this data structure. So let's get started with vectors right here. In the previous lecture we showed how can we assign something into a variable. So basically the left arrow, okay, and then the dash sign, okay, and then for a vector you have to use this C function, and inside this function you have to have the elements of the vector. So let's say we have 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Okay, all these are of same data type. These all are numbers, right? So in vector, yeah, all the elements in the vector has to be of same data type. Okay, so I'll just come into that. How can we check out the data type? So first run this vector, and you can see we have the values of A are from 10 to 50, right? Now we can have a string. Let's say S is equals to we have to use the C function, and then inside the C function we are learning R. Okay, so if I run it, I have the variable S right here. Okay, now let's check out a couple of things. Okay, so let's print out the length of this vector S. Okay, so we can see like there are 4 elements, right? But let's print it out. You can see we have 4 elements. Now we would also like to check out the type. Okay, I know that it's character, the A is number, but we can just use the type of function. So if you just press tab, it's going to autocomplete. Okay, and then type of S. Okay, run it, and you can see it's character. We can do the same thing right here in the console as well. In that case, we don't need to use the print function. So let's say type of, oops, type of, uh, let's just find out the type of A. Okay, the vector A. Okay, and you can see it's a double. Okay, we can use class function as well. It's kind of same thing. Class of A, it's going to give us numeric. Okay, so it's a class of numeric vector. Okay, class of S, if you do that, you can say it's character. Okay, so one thing we have to keep in mind when we are having a vector, the elements of the vector has to be of same type. Okay, so here everything is string, everything is number in here. But in the list, we'll come into list later. In list, you can have a combination of number, vector, other data structure. We'll come into that later. But now let's find out how can we access some of the values in this vector. Okay, so let's say we want to see the first element of vector S. Okay, so S1. Okay, if you just do that and run it, you can see the first element is we. Okay, how about the last element of vector S? So last element is 4, and if you run it, you can see R. Okay, now how about we want to see everything but except the number 50? In that case, you can do A, and then inside A you don't want this one, right? Like 50. So that's the fifth element. So you do -5. And if you press run, you can see we have everything except the last element. Okay. If you want to see like first 3 elements of A, then 1, 2, 3. Okay. If you do that, oops, and control enter, you can see first 3 elements right here. Okay. Now how about if you want to see only 10 and 40? So in that case, you can do A, and then inside A, you have to use the C function. Okay, so C, and then you want first element and the fourth element. Okay, so if you have it right here, A, and then first element, fourth element, but we have to use the C function in this case. Okay, so if you run it, you see 10 and 40. Okay, then couple other things. How about like in the string S? Okay, we want to change this R. Okay, we want to get something called Python. We are learning Python. So how can we do that? We want to change this element right here. So to do that, you do the assignment first right here, and you have to specify where you want to make the change. So this is the fourth element. So here you have 4. Okay, and what you would like to assign? You would like to assign Python. So you do okay. So then run it. Okay, and then you can just print S. Okay, and if you do that, you can see we are learning Python right here. Okay, so you can also change the element. If one other thing I would like to mention, we can use the sequence function. So let's say we want to have a new variable. So new variable v is equals to then we can use the sequence function. And so this is going to give us a vector, but you can specify a sequence. For example, let's say from is equals to 0. So we want something from 0, and then 2 is equals to 100. Okay. So we want something from 0 to 100, but we want to have the sequence like everything is separated by 5. Okay. So if you do that and then print this new variable v, okay, so run these two lines, so run and then run here. So you can see we have 0 to 100 with a separation of 5. Okay, so this function is kind of useful. Later on I will show some more examples. Okay, but let's get into list. So let's define a list. We have a variable L and we would like to assign something into this list. So first call the list list. Okay, and here, unlike in vectors, you can have only numbers or only characters, right? But in list, you can have a character, let's say we, then we can have a number, let's say 10, another character, let's say R, and we can also have boolean, so true. Okay, so this list, it has 4 elements, right? So let's run it out, and you can check out all these things like let's say print type of tab, and then autocomplete, and then you can have L, and then if you want to print it, you can see this is a list type. Okay, the data type is list, right? So you can access the elements same way as we did in vector. So let's say we want to get access to the first element, you will get we. Okay, and remember, like in Python, we usually the first element, it starts with 0. In R, it starts with 1. Okay, so if you run it, you can see we got the first element, right? Now if you would like to modify it, let's say you would like to modify the first element. Okay, so you do the assignment sign, right? And you are going to modify the first element, then what you would like to have instead of the first element. Let's say you would like to have a number. Okay, so let's say 200. Okay, so if you run that, and you can see our list right now, if you print it out, print L. Okay, so it's printing element by element, so 200, then 10. But one thing is, like, this is a string, but if I take out the quotation, it's going to be a number. Okay, so I run it, and basically this is modified. Okay, so you can modify a list like same way as we did in the vector. Okay, and also we can append something into the list. But before we do the append, let's see how can we remove an element. So let's say we would like to show the list, but except the last element, which is a boolean true, right? So last element is number 4th element, right? So if we do that and run it, you can see we only printed like the first 3. Okay, and then also you can combine two different lists. Like let's say we have a list L here and LL, another list. So you do the assignment like this. Okay, and then call list, and let's say we are going to have some characters, like say we, and then R. Okay, watching, and then last one is, let's have some number. Okay, so we have another list right here. You run it, and then if you would like to append these two lists, okay, you have to use the C function. It's very easy. Use the C function, and then the first list is L, and then the last list is LL. Okay, so, and let's say you would like to assign this to a new variable called new list. Okay, so run this line, these two lines. Okay, control enter, control enter. So we got our new list right here. Okay, and you can also print it out here in the console if you would like. So new and list right here, press it. So you can see we have 8 elements in total. Okay, number 8, and you can see like it's plotting from the starting from the first list, continue to the last list. Okay, one thing I would like to share, like how can we append something here in the list. So let's say we would like to append something in the second list. Okay, so you can use the append function. Okay, write down append. Okay, and then which list you would like to modify. So LL. Okay, this is the list you would like to append something. Okay, now what you would like to have, let's say we would like to have a boolean, okay, which is false. Okay, so in that case, you don't need to have this quotation, just add false. And now which location you would like to add it to. So you can use the after is equals to, let's say right here after the watching. Okay, so 1 2 3, so after 3. Okay, so if you do that and run it out, and let's print out this list LL. Okay, you can see the list is not modified here. Okay, we still have the same thing. Okay, all these characters here, but if you just print it out, print, and then run it. Okay, you can see it has 5 elements right here. Okay, so if you append, it's not going to like permanently add this thing. Okay, it just for printing purpose or some other purpose. If you would like to add something, you can just do the append. But to permanently modify the list or add something, you need to do. So for that, what you need to do is like let's say we would like to modify this list LL. It has 4 elements, and we would like to add one, so it will be 5 elements. Okay, so you would like to use you need to use this double brackets. Okay, and here you just increase the length. So length, oops, maybe I have pressed something a mistake, but length of LL. Okay, so you have length of LL right here, and then you are going to increase it by 1. Okay, and now what you would like to assign to it, you have the assignment operator right here, and let's say you would like to add a name. Okay, a character called name. Okay, so if you run this line, now you can see the element got increased by 1. Okay, so we have total 5 elements here. Okay, so you are increasing the length of the list by using these double brackets. Okay, so this is another way. Okay, usually, like, if you do append, it's going to keep the same the number of elements same in the list. Okay, but permanent increment will be, you need to use these double brackets. Now let's create a matrix. Okay, so we have a variable m, then we have the left arrow and then dash. So this is the assignment variable. Okay, then you need to call the matrix function. So right here, and then inside the matrix function we have to have the c function. Okay, so basically we are going to assign some elements here. Let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60. Okay, so the c function is going to combine all these elements, and then the matrix function is going to convert into a matrix. Okay, now we also need to specify the number of rows and number of columns. So n row is 3 and number of column is 2. So basically, the multiplication of number of rows and columns is 6, right? And we have 6 elements. So basically we need to remember that this to satisfy, like the number of row and number of column multiplied output is going to be equal to the number of elements. Okay, we can also make it 2 and make this guy 3. Okay, and this is going to be the same thing. Okay, only the number of row will be 2 this time. Let's visualize the matrix. Okay, so we have run the line, and then write down m in the console. Okay, and you can see now we have 2 rows and 3 columns, right? So we can, as I mentioned, we could have also done like 3 and 2 here, right? So let's run it, and let's visualize m again. So you can see now we have 3 rows and 2 columns. Okay, so we can arrange the number of rows and columns accordingly, the way we need it, but we have to make sure that total number of elements is going to be equal to the multiplication of number of row and column. Okay, now how can we access this matrix? Okay, let's do some examples here. So let's say we want to access this 20 right here. So you can see this 20 is located at row 2, right? So we'll just write down row 2 and column 1, right? So if we have that, we're going to get 20. Okay, so in that way, you can also access to the entire column or entire row. So let's say we want to get the values of column 2. Okay, so in that way you will have to have the comma and then column 2. So first thing is row, right? So always you need to remember row and column. So we have the row here and column here. We want to have the second column. Okay, so we just specified the second column, but we kept this row empty. Why is that? Because we want all the rows, right? Because second column contains all the rows values, right? So if we have pressed that, you can see we have 40, 50 and 60. Okay, we can do the same thing, like if we want to get all the row value. Okay, let's say for row 1, okay, you want to get the value, so you will just specify the row 1. Okay, and in the column space you will just keep it empty because you want all the columns, right? So if you press that, you get 10 and 20, 40, 10 and 40 right there. Okay, another thing is, like, we can also have strings in the matrix. So let's have a matrix with a string. So let's say S is the name of the matrix, and we're going to assign some strings into it. Let's say jobs. Okay, and then we have games, then we have grocery. I'm just putting some random words. Okay, name. Okay, so let's have only 4 elements. So how many rows and columns we need? We need to have also, one thing I didn't do is, like, I have to have the matrix function at the beginning, and then what else is missing? The C function, right? So you need to have the C function, then another parenthesis open and close right here. Okay, now it's all set, but we need to also define the number of rows and columns. So number of rows. Okay, so you can see we have 4 elements, right? So it's going to be 2 by 2 matrix. So we have to have 2 row and 2 column, right? So number of row and number of column is 2. Okay, so let's run this line and visualize the string matrix. Okay, so here is the matrix. Okay, so now a couple of things. We can check out the dimension of the matrix. Okay, so dim of S, and you can see it's a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, we can also, like, change one of the elements in the matrix if we want. So let's say we want to change the first element right here, jobs. Okay, right here. So to do that, we'll just point out where this is located. Okay, so this is located at number 1 row and number 1 column. Okay, and then have the assignment operator, and then what do you want to have there? Let's say some name. Okay, John. Instead of jobs, we want to have John there. Okay, and then press enter, and now visualize the matrix S. Okay, so you see job was replaced by John. Okay, so we were able to change one of the parameters in the matrix, right? Couple more things is like, you can increase the number of row and number of column in a matrix. Okay, so let's say we're going to have a new matrix SS. Okay, and we are going to add one more column or row into this S matrix and assign into this SS matrix. So we have this assignment operator right here. Okay, and then we can have, if you want to increase number of rows, so R bind. Okay, and then inside that you're gonna have whatever is the name of this matrix is right there, and then the C function. Okay, and inside the C function, let's say we want to have a couple more items. Jacob, just putting some random names, so Jacob and Nef. Okay, so we have these two parameters here. Okay, and then we press enter. Now let's visualize this SS. Okay, oops, I have to run it, and then have SS. So you can see Jacob and Nav. So we were able to add these rows. Okay, R bind. So you can also have C bind, where you can add these two elements column wise. You want to see that? Okay, let's run that and then have SS here. So we are going to increase the column here, remember. Okay, so you see we got 3 columns now. So original SS had 2 number of rows and 2 columns, and now we have added one more column into it. Okay, now, since we're talking about matrix, we can also talk about array here. Array, only difference, compared to matrix and array, in matrix is 2-dimensional, right? Let me visualize this again. So M right here, this is 2-dimensional, right? You have the column and the row, right? So in the array, it can be more than 2 dimensions. So it's a multi-dimensional thing, okay? So let's create an array, okay? So let's say we have a variable called AA, and inside this variable AA, we are going to assign some number. So let's say we want to have from 1 to 25. Okay, and we run it. Okay, now we can create an array. So let's say variable a, again the assignment sign, you call the array. Oops, sorry about that. Right here you have the array right here, right? And then you call AA. Okay, and now you have to define the dimension. So we have the dimension right here, and then the C function. Inside the dimension you have to say like what are the number of rows, columns, and dimension here, right? So 25, do you know how can we combine it? Because the multiplication of the elements right here has to equal the total number of elements. So we have 25 elements. Okay, so the combinations we can have is 5, 5, and 1, right? So 5 rows, 5 columns, and they have 1 dimension. Okay, or we can do let's say we can go up to 125. Okay, and then we can have 5 dimensions here. Okay, so 5 rows, 5 columns, and we have 5 dimensions of the matrix. Okay, so that's going to create a multi-dimensional array. Now let's run these 2 lines, run this one, and let's visualize this array A right here. Okay, so if we press that one, now this is going to be interesting. Okay, so you can see the way the output is like we have number of columns here, number of rows, right? But this is the first dimension, you can see. Okay, then this is the second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one. So the output is looks like a matrix, but they have 5 different dimensions. Okay, so that's all for array till now. Let's move into one more thing, which is data frame. Okay, now, since we're talking about matrix, we can also talk about array here. Array, only difference, compared to matrix and array, in matrix is 2-dimensional, right? Let me visualize this again. So M right here, this is 2-dimensional, right? You have the column and the row, right? So in the array, it can be more than 2 dimensions. So it's a multi-dimensional thing. Okay, so let's create an array. Okay, so let's say we have a variable called AA, and inside this variable AA, we are going to assign some number. So let's say we want to have from 1 to 25. Okay, and we run it. Okay, now we can create an array. So let's say variable a, again the assignment sign, you call the array. Oops, sorry about that. Right here you have the array right here, right? And then you call AA. Okay, and now you have to define the dimension. So we have the dimension right here, and then the C function. Inside the dimension you have to say like what are the number of rows, columns, and dimension here, right? So 25, do you know how can we combine it? Because the multiplication of the elements right here has to equal the total number of elements. So we have 25 elements. Okay, so the combinations we can have is 5, 5, and 1, right? So 5 rows, 5 columns, and they have 1 dimension. Okay, or we can do let's say we can go up to 125. Okay, and then we can have 5 dimensions here. Okay, so 5 rows, 5 columns, and we have 5 dimensions of the matrix. Okay, so that's going to create a multi-dimensional array. Now let's run these 2 lines, run this one, and let's visualize this array A right here. Okay, so if we press that one, now this is going to be interesting. Okay, so you can see the way the output is, like we have number of columns here, number of rows, right? But this is the first dimension, you can see. Okay, then this is the second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one. So the output is looks like a matrix, but they have 5 different dimensions. Okay, so that's all for array. Okay, now let's create a data frame. Okay, so let's say we have a variable d and we have the assignment operator right here, and we want to create a data frame. So data, once you press write down data, you can see different options. I'm just going to pick this data frame. Okay, and inside the data frame you have to name the variables. Okay, so let's say I have a variable called name. Okay, and then the C function, let's assign some name into this name variable. Okay, so let's say John, King, and Don. Okay, so we have 3 names assigned into this name variable, right? Then put a comma here, and another variable, let's say we have age. Okay, equals to C function 20, 22, 25. Okay, put a comma here. Let's say we want to have another variable called car. Okay, and this is going to be boolean. Okay, so true, false, true. Okay, and you can see I'm missing the C function, so just going to add the C functions here. Okay, and close it. Before we run this, I would like to say, oh, I'm missing a comma as well here. You can see this data frame is a combination of string, number, and booleans, right? And once I run it, so that's the beauty, right? You can have different types of data into data frame, right? So I run it, and let's visualize the data frame. So I'm pressing D here. So you can see all the variables we named, name, age, and car, it's popping up as a column header right here. Okay, and inside that we have the values. Okay, so all the names, age, and car, true or false, right? We can access the data frame in different ways. Just going to show you a couple of things. So D, let's say we wanna access to the number 1 element, which is the name. So D1, you can see all the names going to pop up. So D3, so it's going to give us all the things right here, right? So press that one, you can see all the boolean values, right? We can also call it by the name. So let's say D, and in that case I have to use double brackets, right? So double brackets and then call the name. Okay, so if I do that, you can see it's giving us the John, King, and Don, all these outputs, right? But you can see if I run it like this, you see the way it's outputted, like when we have this D1, it's it's kind of in column wise, right? But here it's kind of seems like it's all row wise, right? Or vice versa. So basically, the way you want to have the output shown up, you can just call it, right? You can also add new datas, right, into this data frame. And the way you can do it, let's say we are going to have a data frame dd, and then it's the same way as we did in matrix. So you call like r bind, so it's going to add row wise, right? And if you want to add column wise or create a new column, you can just say cbind. Okay, it's up to you. And then you have the data frame d here and a comma, and then the C function, and we also need to give the name of this, right? So let's say we want to have a new variable called bike. Okay, equals to the C function, and then here, yes, let's say we have some strings. Okay, so yes, no, and then yes. Okay, and if we run these and show dd, you can see we were able to create a new column, okay, called by, and then yes, no, yes, all these things, okay, strings. So in that way you can also add rows as well. Just follow the instruction we showed in matrix. Okay, so now let's move into factors. Okay, so let's quickly touch the factor data structure. It's very simple, not going to get into detail into this. So let's say we have a variable f, and here we're going to create a factor. Okay, so right here, and inside the factor I have to have the C function, and let's have some names. Okay, so John, Don, King, okay, and then John, and once I run it, you will see what's the benefit of factor. Okay, King and Don. Okay, so basically same names but repeating twice, right? So I have it right here, I ran it, and let's visualize F. So you can see the output is John, Don, King, all these names. However, you can see it's got levels. Okay, so that's the crucial thing. So levels means like it categorizes the value. So doesn't matter how many times you repeat the same name. Okay, it's going to give you the levels 3. So these are the 1, 2, 3 levels. Okay, so just touching this factors data structure for now, and I think we will going to use it in future. Just make sure like it's kind of give you the category. Okay, so for example, like if I'm going to add something new, let's say name, which is not repeating, the labels will be, this will add a new label. Okay, so let's run this line and then show the F. You can see since it was not repeating, okay, it's occurred a single time, we have name here. But if it occurs like 1,000 times, the same thing is going to, it's not going to change the label. Okay, so I hope you understand. Okay.